This discussion as we unravel the pillars of a secure nation. With that, let me quickly hand over the proceedings to Shri R.R. Swain. Over to you, sir.
Dear delegates, participants, and distinguished guests, good morning and welcome to the fourth session on the second and last day of Chanakya Dialogues 2024. I also warmly welcome our very esteemed panelists who need no introduction now. To straight go to the business of introducing a subject and to explore the connections between social cohesion, inclusive growth and national security, and more importantly, framing and implementing policies on this is truly fraught. Inquiring into the connections between them may appear on the surface of it to be a no-brainer, in the sense that it is an obvious truism or a set of platitudes, suggesting therefore that the real challenge mostly lies in forceful implementation of measures to achieve it. It is like explaining that there are 5 brothers living in a joint family, and if there is good relationship between all of them, and their families are living in harmony with each other, all of them are more or less equally well off. It is obvious that there would be little reason for discord and less occasions for internal fights and quarrels, and equally less occasions for persons outside the family, like a competing neighbor, to exploit the family differences. However, in lives of large societies and nations, the complexities are far more enormous. I cannot claim scholarship on the subject, but on the basis of first-hand experience of a practitioner of enforcement of law, to maintain peace and order and execute anti-terrorist operations, the dynamics of the factors at play, many times below the surface, that influences and circumstances that result in a lack of social cohesion or inclusive growth and economic disparities are pretty complicated. I think I should be able to raise a few questions which should and perhaps should be agitating most of our minds present in this audience. For example, can all internal conflicts or discords be easily and straightforwardly attributed to economic disparity, inequitable resource distribution, or differential treatment? Take the case of Jammu and Kashmir. To what extent can we say that the problem or disaffection in the society is because of lack of economic or employment opportunities, or even regional deprivation? We all know that a very large number of laborers actually moved to Jammu and Kashmir from poorer regions of our country for earning their livelihood because of higher wages there. This is despite the risks involved that are real. In other words, the economic surplus that we have in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in the valley, appears to be strong enough, resulting in the economic osmosis of a large number of unskilled and semi-skilled laborers moving to Jammu and Kashmir. This does not mean that all youngsters of Jammu and Kashmir or in the valley have access to employment, especially of the type they are looking for. Most in Jammu and Kashmir, including in the valley, may I use the word desperately, aspire for government employment, even if it is contractual or temporary. Government has been giving employment under different names like daily wagers, need-based employees, casual labor, etc., which is practically speaking many times less than the wage earned by the unskilled laborers coming from other states. I know for sure there are tens of thousands of young persons who would queue up for a 6,000 rupees monthly job as a SPO in the police. Arguments that the possibility of becoming permanent etc., just cannot explain the seeming absurdity. Now, this may sound paradoxical for one more reason. The national security adversary in Jammu and Kashmir peddles a narrative that the disaffection is against the government. It may please be noted that the narrative propagated by the terrorist networks is that the local government is a puppet of the Indian state and those who work for it are stooges and collaborators. There are enough anecdotal evidence available, which I am sure is likely to be corroborated through a proper research, to underline that a bloated government sector in Jammu and Kashmir could be the cause of the problem. Are we then looking at a situation where inclusive growth, especially that is sustainable, and the policies to enforce it may lie in the domain of examination of vested interests preventing growth of a vibrant private sector in Jammu and Kashmir? Some preliminary data show that the government sector contribution to state GDP in Jammu and Kashmir, in comparison to the private sector, is 4 times more than what is the national average. In normal states, thriving private sectors create wealth and pay taxes to sustain the government sector. How does it work out in a place like Jammu and Kashmir? What is impeding investment into private sector in a place like Jammu and Kashmir? Is it that some business houses have cartelized and are into monopolistic practices? To what extent this has got intertwined with the agenda of separatist politics and extendedly terrorism? To what extent the adversary has successfully concealed it in a false narrative? A concept note that I was given by the research associates of the think tank supporting this dialogue at several places said that transparency and increased accountability in governance, including law enforcement, robust anti-corruption measures, judicial reforms, community-oriented policing, strengthening rule of law are perhaps key concepts and action areas to build trust in public institutions and in turn improve social cohesion that would eventually reduce our vulnerabilities to terrorism and other internal security challenges. Personally, I am pretty inclined to agree on this. Many security experts and practitioners tend to argue that corrupt practices, especially in law enforcement and terrorist operations, but not limited to it, are not as crucial as they are made out to be. This is on the basis of the premise that deficiencies in this array of interrelated subjects exists in other states and other regions of the country, and maybe with a higher degree and at a broader or deeper level enveloping both day-to-day life and systemic governance. This could be an incorrect understanding of the ground situation. Allow me to go back to Jammu and Kashmir, where I have spent a sizable part of my work life. In J&K, we are up against a highly developed, well-oiled narrative machine of the adversary, which works 24/7 and bombards its target population, saying that breaking from the Indian Union will lead to Nizam-e-Mustafa, the Ram Raj, where there would be fairness, freedom from corruption, and efficiency of governance. It must be understood and considered that in many cases, be it left-wing extremism in the Red Corridor or terrorism and separatism backed by radical Islamists in J&K, one of the crucial battles is the battle of narratives. And this is where the Indian state and its instruments are perhaps losing out to the enemy. True, the Indian state may continue to have some governance deficits here and there. While we should not shy away from it and continuously strive to improve matters, as we evolve to a socially cohesive and wealth and opportunity-wise inclusive society, there is a dire need to call the bluff of the adversary within the country and outside its borders. It is eminently mentionable here that according to an analysis, India has registered a decline of 17.89 percentage points in terms of multidimensional poverty, from 29.17% to 11.28% during the last 10 years. The utterly false narrative, for example, that no good can happen as long as J&K is a part of the Indian Union, and extendedly nothing good has been done by the instruments of the Indian state for the people of J&K, and its corollary that nothing bad can happen at the hands of the soldiers of the Tehreek and Jihad, has not been countered effectively. The fact that the Republic of India and its mechanisms spend about 1 lakh crore rupees as government budget alone at the local level, not to include the central government expenditure, do not only sustain the livelihood of about 4 lakh employees and build and maintain and run hospitals, schools, colleges, universities, roads, bridges, electricity and water supply, and a whole range of civic services. The fact that more than 75 government welfare schemes supported at times jointly by the local government and the central government, and many times exclusively by the central government, are completely free from any kind of bias on the basis of caste, community, or religion. And the benefits of the Ayush card does not distinguish a Hindu from a Muslim, a Gujar from a Pahadi, a Jammuite from a Kashmir. And the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao scheme ensures that all benefit across the spectrum on the basis of a community-neutral criteria are astoundingly glossed over to the detriment of our efforts to ensure internal and national security requirements. The point that I'm trying to underline is the challenges of bringing about social cohesion and inclusive growth in furtherance of internal security perhaps is as much a matter of substance as of appearance. It is as much a matter of scrutinizing powerful vested interests, wittingly or otherwise, helping the adversary in preventing structural changes in the economy of a state or a region from getting integrated with the national economy and reaping the benefits thereof for its ordinary people. It is also perhaps a matter of auditing who is preventing an organic and symbiotic growth of the private sector in these areas, preventing opening up of and democratizing economic opportunities to ordinary entrepreneurs, especially at the local level, for its own local citizens, and sadly under the false and fallacious pretext of protecting the local interests. With this, it's time now to listen to our panel experts who have vast experience and knowledge, both as practitioners in their own fields of politics, law, public service, and management of security at the highest level, and also as astute analysts and observers of the nuanced realities on the ground. Jai Hind.